With the wonders of the internet and this age of information, we can just Google a tutorial or a do-it-yourself project and quite literally do it yourself. You don't need an expert, so to speak. But there are some skills that you need to experience for yourself, rather than simply looking up a YouTube video on how to travel across a glacier. That's what we had to do on Little Tahoma. Little Tahoma is this mountain that's considered its own volcano, separate from Mount Rainier, but it's right next to Mount Rainier. It's about 11,000 feet, so pretty high up there, at least for this region, but with a lot of glaciers around it. And where you see glaciers, you see crevasses. Now, if you've never stumbled across a crevasse, it's one of the more eerie things you will ever feel in your life. It's this pit, this hole, the pit of despair. It's this pit of despair that's it boggles the mind how deep it goes. A shallow crevasse is only 100 feet deep. Now, typically, you would think, oh, 100-foot building, 10 stories tall. That's pretty tall. I would not want to stand on the edge of the building that tall and toy with the ledge right there. Crevasses, on the other hand, that's a regular occurrence. When you look down and you feel this cold air shooting up from this split in the ice, and it's just, I've been told that's one of the things that kills you first if you fall in a crevasse, is the hypothermia, the cold air, because it's like a meat freezer. Because you're walking along the glacier and you're sweating, you've got a big pack on, you've got your ice axe and your crampons, and then you feel this sudden chill of air as you're dangling there in the air, and you freeze to death. Crevasses are really not fun, or are they? Oh, so Hiller, my brother-in-law, and I, we went on this trek up Little Tahoma, and there was really no path to the base of this thing, or to the summit for that matter. When people say, well, why didn't you just summit Mount Rainier? It's Little Tahoma, I would say, is much more difficult because you have to blaze your own trail with this thing. And we scaled cliffs, and we went sliding down snowfields, and yes, Hiller fell in a crevasse. It was just the two of us, but we were roped up, and we had done quite a bit of training before this. But when I say you can't really simulate navigating a glacier until you actually get on a glacier, it's just a whole new ball game. You learn so much that you can't learn just reading a book. Although there are great books and great resources out there, you have to just get out of the building, get the boots on the ground, so to speak. I was walking behind him, and he was up ahead, and he had his ice axe and he was probing, so pushing into the snow. And if his ice axe gave way, that means that obviously there was a crevasse in front of him that was covered by a thin layer of snow that you just couldn't see. Had he taken a step, he would have fallen through. Now, we had gone for about 200 or 300 yards along this glacier, and it was in the middle of the night, because you have to wake up when the ice is nice and firm. During midday, the ice and the snow is really soft and slushy, and that opens up a lot more crevasses. So it was in the middle of the night under a full moon, a super moon to be exact. So yeah, like one of the biggest moons that humans have ever seen here on Earth. We were hiking under this thing. It was so cool. Oh wow. And normally I see Hiller, his full body from head to toe, walking along with his little headlamp, and suddenly all I saw from his body was his torso, from here up. And that's because we had gone for maybe about 200 or 300 yards, quite a significant distance, without experiencing any crevasses. We didn't have to deviate. We were just going in a straight line. And, well, he thought, well, you know, we're probably pretty safe. And he probed at the same time as he took the step. And these are his words, not mine. Right when I took the step, Beau, I looked to my left and I saw a big gaping black hole. And I knew, uh-oh, and down he went. He has very, very good reflexes, though. You know, we do a lot of martial arts together, so yeah, he's used to death. He spun around in the air and slammed his ice axe into the edge of this crevasse and just started kicking with all his might to try to get out of this thing. I was not meaning to pat myself on the back right here, but when you are behind someone, you need to be almost more alert than they are, because their life is in your hands. So when they go down in a crevasse, you immediately dig down into the ice and just dig, dig, dig. Thrust your crampons, the tips of your toes, into the glacier, and your ice axe point. You just pound that in as hard as you can. And I remember that the rope did not actually go tight, and I was expecting it to. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'll pull a little and actually make it, give him some feedback, so to speak, so that he knows that I'm actually here. So I gave a little tug, and I didn't hear anything, and I was like, Hiller, are you okay? And I just saw his little headlamp going around like this, and that's all you could see. Just terrifying. And eventually, I did see him right himself as he stood up on his own feet, and I was still just dug in with all my might. And he was like, I'm okay. I just kind of fell in a crevasse. You know, that's all. Now, some people ask us how deep this thing was. It was deep enough that you couldn't see the bottom. There you go. That's not comfortable at all. Woo! Yeah, so that's the adventure-filled story of Hiller falling in a crevasse. You may be wondering, did in fact you get to the summit? We got about 1,000 feet shy from the summit, because 8:30 a.m. was our turnaround time, and respect the turnaround time. Respect it. Set it beforehand, and if you get to that point, even if you're that far away from the summit, turn around. It's just not worth it. And I'm glad we did turn around, because by the time we got back to the very first crevasse we had experienced that morning, the snow was getting pretty darn slushy. And had we pushed it, avalanches open up, more crevasses open up. It's just wicked. You don't want that. So Little Tahoma, we're probably going back to that awful little peak just to see if we can in fact get to the very, very tippy top. I do not consider the trip a failure. It was quite epic, but I learned a lot about glacier travel, and it's just one of those sports that you need to stay mentally engaged, hyper-vigilant, in Hiller's words, the entire time. That's Little Tahoma, and believe me, there is nothing little about Little Tahoma.